Hello, and welcome back to Baby Ellis's stories. We now return to Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett. Part 8. Angua woke up. It was almost noon. She was in her own bed at Mrs. Cake's, and someone was knocking at the door. She said.
I don't know. Shall I ask him to go away?
Said a voice from around keyhole level. Angua thought quickly. The other residents had warned her about this, so she waited for her cue.
Oh, thanks, love. I was forgetting,
said the voice. You had to pick your time with Mrs. Cakes. It was difficult, living in a house run by someone whose mind was only nominally attached to the present. Mrs. Cake was a psychic. You've got your precognition switched on again, Mrs. Cake, said Angua, swinging her legs out of bed and rummaging quickly through the pile of clothes on the chair.
Where do we got to?
Said Mrs. Cake, still on the other side of the door. You just said. I don't know. Shall I ask him to go away, Mrs. Cake? Said Angua. Clothes. That was always the trouble. At least a male werewolf only had to worry about a pair of shorts and pretend he'd been on a brisk run.
Right,
Mrs. Cake coughed.
There's a young man downstairs asking for you,
she said. Who is it? Said Angua. There was a moment's silence.
Yes, I think that's all sorted out,
said Mrs. Cake.
Sorry, dear. I get terrible headaches if people don't fill in the right bits. Are you human, dear?
You can come in, Mrs. Cake. It wasn't much of a room. It was mainly brown. Brown oilcloth flooring, brown walls, a picture over the brown bed of a brown stag being attacked by brown dogs on a brown moorland against a sky which, contrary to established meteorological knowledge, was brown. There was a brown wardrobe. Possibly, if you fought your way through the mysterious old coats hanging in it, you'd break through into a magical fairyland full of talking animals and goblins. But it'd probably not be worth it. Mrs. Cake entered. She was a small, fat woman, but made up for her lack of height by wearing a huge black hat. Not the pointy witch variety, but one covered with stuffed birds, wax fruit, and other assorted decorative items, all painted black. Angua liked her. Angua quite liked her. The rooms were clean, the rates were cheap, and Mrs. Cake had a very understanding approach to people who lived slightly unusual lives and had, for example, an aversion to garlic. Her daughter was a werewolf, and she knew all about the need for ground floor windows and doors with long handles that a paw could operate.
He's got chainmail on,
said Mrs. Cake. She was holding a bucket of gravel in either hand.
He's got soap in his ears too.
Oh, right.
I can tell him to bugger off if you like, said Mrs. Cake. That's what I always does if the wrong sort comes round. Especially if they've got a stake. I can't be having with that sort of thing. People messing up the hallways, waving torches and stuff.
I think I know who it is, said Angua. I'll see to it. She tucked in her shirt.
Pull the door to if you go out,
Mrs. Cake called after her as she went out into the hall.
Oh, I'm just off to change the dirt in Mr. Wilkins' coffin on account of his back giving him trouble.
It looks like gravel to me, Mrs. Cake.
Orthopedics, eh?
Carrot was standing respectfully on the doorstep with his helmet under his arm and a very embarrassed expression on his face. Well, said Angua, not unkindly. Good morning. I thought, perhaps you not knowing very much about the city really, I could, if you like, if you don't mind, not having to go on duty for a while, show you some of it. For a moment Angua thought she'd contracted pre-science from Mrs. Cake. Various futures flitted across her imagination. I haven't had breakfast, she said. They make a very good breakfast in Gimlet's Dwarf Delicatessen in Cable Street. It's lunchtime. It's breakfast time for the night watch. I'm practically vegetarian. He does a Sawyer rat. She gave in. I'll fetch my coat.
Har har,
said a voice full of withering cynicism. She looked down. Gaspard was sitting behind Carrot, trying to glare while scratching himself furiously.
Last night we chased a cat up a tree, said Gaspard. You and me, eh? We could make it. Fate has thrown us together, style of thing.
Go away. Sorry, said Carrot. Not you. That dog. Carrot turned. Him? Is he bothering you now? He's a nice little chap. Woof, woof. Biscuit. Carrot automatically patted his pocket. See, said Gaspard. This boy is Mr. Simple. Am I right? Do they let dogs in dwarf shops? Said Angua. No, said Carrot. Oh, na hook, said Gaspard. Really, sounds good to me, said Angua. Let's go. Vegetarian, mumbled Gaspard, limping after them. Oh my. Shut up. Sorry, said Carrot. I was just thinking aloud. Vimes's pillow was cold and hard. He felt it gingerly. It was cold and hard because it was not a pillow, but a table. His cheek appeared to be stuck to it, and he was not interested in speculating what with. He hadn't even managed to take his armor off, but he did manage to unstick one eye. He'd been writing in his notebook, trying to make sense of it all, and then he'd gone to sleep. What time was it? No time to look back. He traced out. Stolen from Assassin's Guild, gone. Hammerhawk killed. Smell of fireworks. Lump of lead. Alchemical symbols. Second body in river. A clown. Where was his red nose? Gone. Gonne. Gone. He stared at the scrawled notes. I'm on the path, he thought. I don't have to know where it leads. I just have to follow. There's always a crime if you look hard enough, and the assassins are in this somewhere. Follow every lead, check every detail, chip away. I'm hungry. He staggered to his feet and looked at his face in the cracked mirror over the basin. Events of the previous day filtered through the dogged galls of memory. Central to all of them was the face of Lord Veterinary. Vimes grew angry just thinking about that. The cool way he told Vimes that he mustn't take an interest in the theft from. Vimes stared at his reflection. Something stung his ear and smashed the glass. Vimes stared at the hole in the plaster, surrounded by the remains of a mirror frame. Around him, the mirror glass tinkled to the floor. Vimes stood stock still for a long moment. Then his legs, reaching the conclusion that his brain was somewhere else, threw the rest of him to the floor. There was another tinkle, and a half bottle of Bear Huggers exploded on the desk. Vimes couldn't even remember buying it. He scrambled forward on hands and knees and pulled himself upright alongside the window. Images flashed through his mind. The dead dwarf, the hole in the wall. A thought seemed to start in the small of his back and spread upwards to his brain. These were lath and plaster walls, and old ones at that. You could push a finger through them with a bit of effort. As for a lump of metal, he hit the floor at the same time as a pock coincided with a hole punched through the wall on one side of the window. Plaster dust puffed into the air. His crossbow was leaning against the wall. He wasn't an expert, but hells, who was? You pointed it and you fired. He pulled it towards him, rolled on his back, stuck his foot in the stirrup, and hauled on the string until it clicked into place. Then he rolled back onto one knee and slotted a quarrel into the groove. A catapult, that's what it was. It had to be. Troll-sized, perhaps. Someone up on the roof of the opera house, or somewhere high. Draw their fire. He picked up his helmet and balanced it on the end of another quarrel. The thing to do was crouch below the window and... He thought for a moment. Then he shuffled across the floor to the corner, where there was a pole with a hook on the end. Once upon a time it had been used to open the upper windows, now long rusted shut. He balanced his helmet on the end, wedged himself into the corner, and with a certain amount of effort moved the pole so that the helmet just showed over the windowsill. Pock! Splinters flew up from a point on the floor where it would undoubtedly have severely inconvenienced anyone lying on the boards, cautiously raising a decoy helmet on a stick. Vimes smiled. Someone was trying to kill him, and that made him feel more alive than he had done for days. And they were also slightly less intelligent than he was. This is a quality you should always pray for in your would-be murderer. He dropped the pole, picked up the crossbow, spun past the window, fired at an indistinct shape on the opera house roof opposite, as if the bow could possibly carry across that range, leapt across the room and wrenched at the door. Something smashed into the door frame as the door swung to behind him. Then it was down the back stairs, out of the door, over the privy roof, into Knuckle Passage, up the back steps of Zorgo, the retro-phrenologist, into Zorgo's operating room, and over to the window. Zorgo and his current patient looked at him curiously. Pugnant's roof was empty. Vimes turned back and met a pair of puzzled gazes. "Morning, Captain Vimes," said the retro-phrenologist, a hammer still upraised in one massive hand. Vimes smiled manically. "Just thought," he began, and then went on. "I saw an interesting rare butterfly on the roof over there." Troll and patient stared politely past him. "But there wasn't," said Vimes. He walked back to the door. "Sorry to have bothered you," he said, and left. Zorgo's patient watched him go with interest. "Didn't he have a crossbow?" he said. "Bit odd, going after interesting rare butterflies with a crossbow." Zorgo readjusted the fit of the grid on his patient's bald head. "Dunno," he said. "I suppose it stops them creating all these damn thunderstorms." He picked up the mallet again.
Now what were we going for today? Decisiveness, yes? Yes, well, no, maybe. Right. Zorgo took aim. This, he said with absolute truth, won't hurt a bit.
It was more than just a delicatessen. It was a sort of dwarf community centre and meeting place. The babble of voices stopped when Angua entered, bending almost double, but started up again with slightly more volume and a few laughs when Carrot followed. He waved cheerfully at the other customers. Then he carefully removed 2 chairs. It was just possible to sit upright if he sat on the floor.
Very nice, said Angua. Ethnic. I come in here quite a lot, said Carrot. The food's good and, of course, it pays to keep your ear to the ground. That'd certainly be easy here, said Angua, and laughed.
Pardon? Well, I mean, the ground is so much closer. She felt a pit opening wider with every word. The noise level had suddenly dropped again. Said Carrot, staring fixedly at her. How can I put this? People are talking in dwarfish, but they're listening in human. Sorry? Carrot smiled and then nodded at the cook behind the counter and cleared his throat noisily. I think I might have a throat sweet somewhere, Angua began. I was ordering breakfast, said Carrot. You know the menu off by heart? Oh yes, but it's written on the wall as well. Angua turned and looked again at what she thought were merely random scratches. It's Ogham, said Carrot, an ancient and poetic runic script whose origins are lost in the mists of time, but it's thought to have been invented even before the gods. Gosh, what does it say? Carrot really cleared his throat this time. Sauce, egg, beans, and rat. 12p sauce, rat and fried slice. 10p cream cheese, rat. 9p rat and beans. 8p rat and ketchup. 7p rat. 4p. Why does ketchup cost almost as much as the rat? Said Angua. Have you tried rat without ketchup? Said Carrot. Anyway, I ordered you dwarf bread. Have you ever eaten dwarf bread? No. Everyone should try it once, said Carrot. He appeared to consider this. Most people do, he added. 3.5 minutes after waking up, Captain Samuel Vimes, night watch, staggered up the last few steps to the roof of the city's opera house, gasped for breath and threw up, Allegro ma non troppo. Allegro ma non troppo is an Italian musical term meaning fast but not too fast, or lively but not too much. Then he leaned against the wall, waving his crossbow vaguely in front of him. There wasn't anyone else on the roof. There were just the leads stretching away, drinking up the morning sunlight. It was already almost too hot to move. When he felt a bit better, he poked around among the chimneys and skylight, but there were a dozen ways down and 1,000 places to hide. He could see right into his room from here. Come to that, he could see into the rooms of most of the city. Catapult? No. Oh well, at least there'd been witnesses. He walked to the edge of the roof and peered over. Hello there, he said. He blinked. It was 6 stories down, and not a sight to look at on a recently emptied stomach.
Could you come up here, please? He said.
Vimes stood back. There was a scrape of stone and a gargoyle pulled itself laboriously over the parapet, moving like a cheap stop-motion animation. He didn't know much about gargoyles. Carrot had said something once about how marvelous it was, an urban troll species that had evolved a symbiotic relationship with gutters, and he had admired the way they funneled run-off water into their ears and out through fine sieves in their mouths. They were probably the strangest species on the disc. You didn't get many birds nesting on buildings colonized by gargoyles, and bats tended to fly around them.
What's your name, friend?
Ornis Ogruking Ordway?
Vimes's lips moved as he mentally inserted all those sounds unobtainable to a creature whose mouth was stuck permanently open.
Cornice overlooking Broadway.
A gargoyle's personal identity was intimately bound up with its normal location, like a limpet.
Well now, Cornice, he said, do you know who I am?
Oh,
said the gargoyle suddenly. Vimes nodded. It sits up here in all weather, straining gnats through its ears, he thought. People like that don't have a crowded address book. Even whelks get out more.
I'm Captain Vimes of the Watch.
The gargoyle pricked up its huge ears.
Or is there Arrot?
Vimes worked this one out too, and blinked.
You know Corporal Carrot.
Oh, is Leonos Arrot?
Vimes snorted.
I grew up here, he thought, and when I walk down the street, everyone says, "Who's that glum bugger?" Carrot's been here a few months, and everyone knows him. And he knows everyone. Everyone likes him. I'd be annoyed about that, if only he wasn't so likable.
You live right up here, said Vimes, interested despite the more pressing problem on his mind. How come you know Carrot?
Cons ook Ims and ox ug.
Uzzy. Egg. Did someone else come up here just now? Egg. Did you see who it was?
Oh, oot is oot on ed. Ang et og. A irk. I or ing un. A on or o earns eat.
Hollow Fern Street, Vimes translated. Whoever it was would be well away by now.
Id ad a ik,
Cornice volunteered.
A irk hectic.
A what?
Irk. Oh, ang ok arx okix. Okix ang.
Oh, fireworks.
Egg ax ot ed.
A firework stick, like a rocket stick.
Oh, ot a stick. Oint. Ik goes ang.
You point it and it goes bang.
Egg.
Vimes scratched his head. Sounded like a wizard's staff. But they didn't go bang.
Well, thanks, he said. You've been helpful.
He turned back towards the stairs. Someone had tried to kill him, and the patrician had warned him against investigating the theft from the Assassin's Guild.
Theft,
he said. Up until then, Vimes hadn't even been certain there had been a theft. And then, of course, there are the laws of chance. They play a far greater role in police procedure than narrative casualty would like to admit. For every murder solved by the careful discovery of a vital footprint or a cigarette end, 100 failed to be resolved because the wind blew some leaves the wrong way or it didn't rain the night before. So many crimes are solved by a happy accident, by the random stopping of a car, by an overheard remark, by someone of the right nationality happening to be within 5 miles of the scene of the crime without an alibi. Even Vimes knew about the power of chance. His sandal clinked against something metallic.
And this, said Corporal Carrot, is the famous commemorative arch celebrating the Battle of Crumhorn. We won it, I think. It's got over 90 statues of famous soldiers. It's something of a landmark.
Should have put up a statue to the accountants, said a doggy voice behind Angua. First battle in the universe where the enemy were persuaded to sell their weapons.
Where is it then? Said Angua, still ignoring Gaspod. Ah, yes, that's the problem, said Carrot. Excuse me, Mr. Scant. This is Mr. Scant, official keeper of the monuments. According to ancient tradition, his pay is $1 a year and a new vest every Hog's Watch Day. There was an old man sitting on a stool at the road junction with his hat over his eyes. He pushed it up.
Afternoon, Mr. Carrot. You'll be wanting to see the triumphal arch, will you?
Yes, please. Carrot turned back to Angua. Unfortunately, the actual practical design was turned over to bloody stupid Johnson. The old man eventually produced a small cardboard box from a pocket and reverentially took off the lid. Where is it? Just there, said Carrot, behind that little bit of cotton wool. Oh, I'm afraid that Mr. Johnson, accurate measurements were something that happened to other people. Mr. Scant closed the lid. He also did the Quer Memorial, the Hanging Gardens of Ankh, and the Colossus of Morpork, said Carrot. The Colossus of Morpork, said Angua. Mr. Scant held up a skinny finger.
Ah, he said. Don't go away.
He started to pat his pockets.
Got him here somewhere.
Didn't the man ever design anything useful?
Well, he did design an ornamental cruet set for Mad Lord Snapcase, said Carrot, as they strolled away.
He got that right?
Not exactly, but here's an interesting fact. 4 families lived in a salt shaker, and we used the pepper pot for storing grain.
Angua smiled. Interesting facts. Carrot was full of interesting facts about Ankh-Morpork. Angua felt she was floating uneasily on a sea of them. Walking along a street with Carrot was like having 3 guided tours rolled into one.
Now here, said Carrot, is the Beggars' Guild. They're the oldest of the guilds.
Not many people know that. Is that so?
People think it'd be the Fools or the Assassins. Ask anyone. They'll say the oldest guild in Ankh-Morpork is certainly the Fools' Guild or the Assassins' Guild. But they aren't. They are quite recent. But there's been a Beggars' Guild for centuries.
Really? Said Angua weakly. In the last hour she'd learned more about Ankh-Morpork than any reasonable person wanted to know. She vaguely suspected that Carrot was trying to court her, but instead of the usual flowers or chocolate, he seemed to be trying to gift-wrap a city. And despite all her better instincts, she was feeling jealous.
Of a city? Ye gods! I've known him a couple of days.
It was the way he wore the place. You expected him any moment to break into the kind of song that has suspicious rhymes and phrases like "my kind of town" and "I wanna be a part of it" in it. The kind of song where people dance in the street and give the singer apples and join in, and a dozen lowly match girls suddenly show amazing choreographical ability, and everyone acts like cheery, lovable citizens instead of the murderous, evil-minded, self-centered individuals they suspect themselves to be. But the point was that if Carrot had erupted into a song and dance, people would have joined in. Carrot could have jollied a circle of standing stones to form up behind him and do a rumba.
"There's some very interesting old statuary in the main courtyard," he said, "including a very good one of Jimmy, the god of beggars. I'll show you. They won't mind." He rapped on the door. "You don't have to," said Angua. "It's no trouble." The door opened. Angua's nostrils flared. There was a smell. A beggar looked Carrot up and down. His mouth had dropped open. "It's Crumbling Michael, isn't it?" said Carrot in his cheery way. The door slammed. Donk! "Well, that wasn't very friendly," said Carrot. "Stinks, don't it?" said a nasty little voice from somewhere behind Angua. While she was in no mood to acknowledge Gaspod, she found herself nodding. Although the beggars were an entire cocktail of odors, the second biggest one was fear, and the biggest of all was blood. The scent of it made her want to scream. There was a babble of voices behind the door, and it swung open again. This time there was a whole crowd of beggars there. They were all staring at Carrot. "All right, Your Honor," said the one hailed as Crumbling Michael. "We give in. How did you know?" "How did we know what?" Carrot began, but Angua nudged him. "Someone's been killed here," she said. "Who's she?" said Crumbling Michael. "Lance-constable Angua is a man of the watch," said Carrot. "Har, har," said Gaspod. "I must say you people are getting better," said Crumbling Michael. "We only found the poor thing a few minutes ago." Angua could feel Carrot opening his mouth to say who. She nudged him again. "You'd better take us to him," she said. He turned out to be, for one thing, he turned out to be a she, in a rag-strewn room on the top floor. Angua knelt beside the body. It was very clearly a body now. It certainly wasn't a person. A person normally had more head on their shoulders. "Why?" she said. "Who'd do such a thing?" Carrot turned to the beggars clustered around the doorway. "Who was she?" "Lettuce Nibs," said Crumbling Michael. "She was just the lady's maid to Queen Molly." Angua glanced up at Carrot. "Queen?" "They sometimes call the head beggar king or queen," said Carrot. He was breathing heavily. Angua pulled the maid's velvet cloak over the corpse. "Just the maid?" she muttered. There was a full-length mirror in the middle of the floor, or at least the frame of one. The glass was scattered like sequins around it. So was the glass from a window pane. Carrot kicked aside some shards. There was a groove in the floor, and something metallic embedded in it. "Crumbling Michael, I need a nail and a length of string," said Carrot, very slowly and carefully. His eyes never left the speck of metal. It was almost as if he expected it to do something. "I don't think," the beggar began. Carrot reached out without turning his head and picked him up by his grubby collar without apparent effort. "A length of string," he repeated, "and a nail." "Yes, Corporal Carrot." "And the rest of you, go away," said Angua. They goggled at her. "Do it!" she shouted,
clenching her fists. "And stop staring at her!" The beggars vanished. "It'll take a while to get that string," said Carrot, brushing aside some glass. "They'll have to beg it off someone you see." He drew his knife and started digging at the floorboards with care. Eventually he excavated a metal slug, flattened slightly by its passage through the window, the mirror, the floorboards, and certain parts of the late lettuce nibs that had never been designed to see daylight. He turned it over and over in his hand. "Angua!" "Yes." "How did you know there was someone dead in here?" "I just had a feeling." The beggars returned, so unnerved that half a dozen of them were trying to carry one piece of string. Carrot hammered the nail into the frame under the smashed pane to hold one end of the string. He stuck his knife in the groove and affixed the other end of the string to it. Then he lay down and sighted up the string. "Good grief, what is it?" "It must have come from the roof of the opera house." "Yes, so? That's more than 200 yards away." "Yes." The thing went an inch into an oak floor." "Did you know the girl at all?" said Angua, and felt embarrassed at asking. "Not really. I thought you knew everyone." "She was just someone I'd seen around. She was just someone I'd see around. The city's full of people who you just see around." "Why do beggars need servants?" "You don't think my hair gets like this by itself, dear, do you?" There was an apparition in the doorway. Its face was a mass of sores. There were warts, and they had warts, and they had hair on it. There were warts, and they had warts, and they had hair on. It was possibly female, but it was hard to tell under the layers and layers of rags. The aforementioned hair looked as though it had been permed by a hurricane, with treacles on its fingers. Then it straightened up. "Oh, Corporal Carrot, didn't know it was you." The voice was normal now, no trace of whine or wheedle. The figure turned and brought her stick down hard on something in the corridor. "Naughty boy, dribbling Sydney! You could have told it were Corporal Carrot." "Arg!" The figure strode into the room. "And who's your lady friend, Mr. Carrot?" "This is Lance-constable Angua. Angua, this is Queen Molly of the Beggars." For once, Angua noted, someone wasn't surprised to find a female in the watch. Queen Molly nodded at her as one working woman to another. The Beggars Guild was an equal opportunity non-employer. "Good day to you. You couldn't spare $10,000 for a small mansion, could you?" "No." "Just asking." Queen Molly prodded at the gown. "What was it, Corporal?" "I think it's a new kind of weapon." "We heard the glass smash, and there she was," said Molly. "Why would anyone want to kill her?" Carrot looked at the velvet cloak. "Whose room is this?" he said. "Mine. It's my dressing room." "Then whoever did it wasn't after her. He was after you, Molly." "Some in rags, and some in tags, and one in a velvet gown. It's in your charter, isn't it? Official dress of the chief beggar. She probably couldn't resist seeing what it looked like on her. Right gown, right room, wrong person." Molly put her hand to her mouth, risking instant poisoning. "Assassination?" Carrot shook his head. "That doesn't sound right. They like to do it up close. It's a caring profession," he added bitterly. "What should I do?" "Burying the poor thing would be a good start." Carrot turned the metal slug over in his fingers. Then he sniffed it. "Fireworks," he said. "Yes," said Angua. "And what are you going to do?" said Queen Molly. "You're watchmen, aren't you? What's happening? What are you going to do about it?"